So for me, my journey starts out 16 years ago when I have twin boys were born, and I remember being here at that time. And I always said that God gave me twins, so I always realized in my life that no two kids do the same thing at the same time and develop. And that has been very accurate. So this is Harrison. Harrison, my son, is 16 years old, and he started out at the YSC, and he went to the Shipley School for middle school, and he's been a great school student. He knew how to behave, he knew how to write down notes, he knew how to take tests well, and he just, school never was really that hard for him, and he really kind of went through it. And so when he was in 9th grade and he was starting high school, I had asked him, we had figured we picked out his schools for so long that it would be a good time for him to pick out which school he wanted to attend. And we looked at our local public school, and we looked at some of the private schools in the area, and I told him he could visit some schools, and this would be his choice. So he came back, and he said he'd like to have his high school education online, which is not something that was on the list of choices that we had. And when I realized why he might want that, it was because I had started a new school, and part of the school that I had started was an online school. And I had been coming home every day talking about online education and how it was amazing, and it really worked for our students because they were traveling. And so I think he had heard this, and he was curious about it, and he wanted to try it out. So when I asked him a little bit about what was intriguing to him about online education, he loves technology. He likes to learn at his own pace, and he felt that in the classroom it's really hard for him to be able to move at his own pace. And those backpacks were really heavy, and he wanted everything accessible online. So he started out in his first high school year online, and he really enjoyed it. He had one part that was incredibly difficult for him, and that was managing his time. He didn't realize that when he was in a classroom and everything was booked up, he knew where to go, what to do, when the due dates were, and when he was on his own, he quickly found out he wasn't very good at that. And he ended up actually working through the summer to complete his 9th grade year. By the time he got to 10th grade, he had no trouble at all. And what I realized from his experience is that he needed to experience the failure, he needed to experience the difficulty, and he actually needed to know what he couldn't do well, because he really didn't see that in the classroom. So his quote, when I asked him a little bit about online, he tells me this about himself, that, he can learn wherever he wants to, but I think this is the part that I think is most significant for me. Even though your teacher's not there, there is a teacher. So in an online class, you actually are a teacher and a student at the same time. But the last part is the absence of a teacher makes you rely more on yourself and makes you a more independent learner. With more independence, you can eventually teach yourself about any topic you desire. He Skypes with his teachers regularly. He knows what they look like, and he has a relationship with them. But he also knows when to use his brain first and to use theirs. And about 4 months ago, he just built his own computer, which he tells me, Mom, everyone does that now. So I think one of the things that he realized is that he could learn a lot on his own and from his peers, and by looking things up, and by resourcing teachers. My second twin is Everett. Everett is a very different kind of learner. Everett realized when he was very young that learning was not easy for him. Reading and writing were really tough for him. And that the way that teachers were teaching him made it hard for him to understand. He was diagnosed with some auditory processing, he had some executive functioning issues, and it was really hard for him to be able to learn. And so we found a wonderful school that helped him break down information and break down learning. And he knows what it means to work hard. And he gets very frustrated when adults, quote, his mom says, "Can you help me with this?" Because he says, "Mom, you always ask me, why don't you just try? That's how I've had to do everything." And of course, I say, because it's so much easier. You know how to do it. And he says to me, and you're never going to learn it unless you try. And what I realized is the process of learning taught him a lot, not only about how he learns, but what it takes to learn. And his work ethic and his determination and his persistence are the things that came through. But Everett's an incredibly creative kid. And I realized that that was an untapped area that I didn't see in his education. He says, once an idea interests you, it will build itself. So, when he was 8 years old, I walked into the kitchen and I saw this pair of goggles. It's a pair of goggles that were built with some plastic from the recycling bin, a rubber band, and 3 paper clips. And then this was a book. Actually, it was an old Tom Sawyer book that was turned into a beautiful flower and a 3D image, and then a catapult that he had made. So Everett learns by using his hands, and he learns by creating a picture that's in his head that isn't really revealed until he shows it to us. So his ability to be able to learn on his own is a lot about creating what's in his head and giving it to the outside world. He has become a phenomenal student in the school that he's in. He's at Delaware Valley Friends right now, and his favorite subject is English. And I would have never known that that would have been something he would enjoy. And he loves creative writing as well. He just got his report card. And I take this out from his report card. I'm so proud of Everett for his incredible work ethic, his genuine love of learning, and his never-ending pursuit of excellence. He always challenges himself, and the last sentence, I think, is very important. He knows how to put in the time he needs to achieve the results he wants. So even when learning hasn't been easy for him, he has found a way to show the world what he can do. So I have 2 sons who I expected would go to a wonderful high school experience just like everybody else. And I found that they were very different kinds of learners. So in my journey in education, I ended up having a remarkable experience after I left Penn Charter. I went to the Shipley school, and I was the head of the lower and middle school. And I thought the next step would be going on to high school. And I was commissioned by a gentleman named Richard Graham, who owns the Philadelphia Union, which I didn't know what it was, but it's the professional soccer team. And he asked me if I might be interested in starting a school for soccer athletes. Now, for those of you who know me, I don't play soccer, I don't coach soccer, and I'm not even a soccer mom. And I've never watched the World Cup until this year. So I thought it was an exciting opportunity, but one that really didn't speak to me because I didn't know anything about soccer. And he said, well, I've got great coaches from Europe. I don't need the soccer. I just need someone creating an education for them. Because in this country, you need an education. It's not like overseas where you're 17 and you go pro. So I thought, all you want me to do is create a school for soccer players. Well, I can do that. But I didn't know how to do that because I started out at Penn Charter that opened in 1685. And so to start a school in 2013 requires that you go for a license and you go to Harrisburg and you tell them what your mission is because you have to write your mission. And what I realized through this process is that building a school is building a culture, and it's building a community, and it houses what you believe. So what did I believe about these kids who play soccer? In order to know what kind of school to create for them, I needed to know who they were. So I knew they were athletes, and I knew they had a passion for athletics. They'd been playing since they were 4 years old. I don't know what it feels like to be 14 and have a passion for something, but I admired that about them. So when I was thinking about the school, it occurred to me the kinds of things that I learned from my own children, was that learning has to be personalized. I had 2 different kids who had different educational modalities and systems. For them, learning had to take place anywhere, anytime, because often More often than being in school, they traveled. They traveled overseas, they traveled for national camp, and there are times where teachers would wait for them and nobody would come up for class because you couldn't hold fixed classes. So my teachers then had to learn how to put things online as well. I also learned that students had to take ownership over their own learning, because when nobody is watching, as I learned from Harrison, you still have to keep up with your assignments and your due dates. And I noticed that students had to have a voice and choice in their education, because it occurred to me that many of them didn't like school. Soccer worked beautifully, but school didn't. So my thought was, maybe nobody asked them what they liked, what they might be interested in. So those were the tenets that were really critical in creating the school. On the athletic side, we were blessed with a beautiful athletic facility. So kids came in, and I knew educationally when we were constructing the program, all I read about is the adolescent brain sleeping in the morning and not getting up. And those neurons had to get started. And so I thought, this is perfect. They can train in the morning. They'll be all ripe and ready for education. So we put movement at the forefront, looking at the research on education. Nutrition, these are athletes that have put out a lot of calories. They need to put back calories. So we had our kitchen, we have an open kitchen. Kids ordered groceries, they had a budget, they worked with nutritionists. Hydration, they needed to be hydrated for that mile and cheap to make sense. So if you walk into our school, you could be in a geometry class with some of the kids with geometry online that are somewhere else, and they are synchronous or asynchronous online, and some kids in the school, and they might be eating granola bars and drinking water and moving around and learning. And that's what the school looked like, because we knew that these athletes needed a lot of that. High performance sports, injury prevention, they were training 4 days with the 5th day being optional. So their body was really taking a lot. And so they train in the morning, they'd turn up around 11, they'd have lunch, and then we'd have school until about 4, and then they'd train from 4 to 8. So that meant no homework. Imagine having a high school without homework. But that's what we did. How do we do that? We made sure that if information that was given to students was blocked into their schedule, they could do it in the school day, or they could do it 24/7 as they were traveling. It also meant that they had to get 9 hours of sleep a night, because if they did not get 9 hours of sleep, their bodies would heal from working out and doing ADT training. Their brain wouldn't consolidate information. So this holistic model of eating, sleeping, training, which I knew as adolescents and I knew in high school were really critical, became a necessary part of our education. Soon enough, our teachers also had to be able to capture the interest of our students. So our science teacher said, well, I have to teach kinematics and projectile motion in physics. So let me use the Adidas soccer ball. So she went across the way to the fields, and she said, let's just kick the soccer ball into the goal, and we'll chart that little chip in the Adidas ball, and we'll graph it, and we'll see how well that goes. But then we'll go back, and we'll go back to the lab, and we'll learn all about physics. And once we learn about physics, let's see if you can go back and actually curve the ball better and get your data up. Well, when you're with competitive soccer players, you get a lot of engagement. So she wrote this up, and she actually just got it published in a STEM science journal, which is a great way of bringing in the idea of interdisciplinary learning and kids who take a passion for what they have. Our English teacher had the same thing. He was reading a lot about what soccer athletes tend to do, how they get motivated. And so Dan Coyle, who had visited our school, had given the boys the little book of talent, which has tips. Imagery and visualization is a really critical piece of the right brain, being able to get an imprint of what it needs to do. And if you look at the most recent research on executive functioning, one of the treatments for kids who have ADD or ADHD is for them to visualize what they're going to do before they do it, because it's like a roadmap. It's like imprint on their brain, and then they execute. On the field, or if you're doing chess, kids who play at a high level never look at what's out on the field. They look at the next 3 things that could happen. So visualizing is key. So we talk a lot about this, and this was one of our 11th graders had some blogs that they did, and this was a young boy, actually he's graduated now. So since I was a child, I've always found myself thinking in pictures. I thought there was something was wrong with me until I read this book, and I did know it was a gift, and it helped me do better in the classroom and the field. We also work with corporate sponsors. So Generation Adidas helps to fund our school. And by doing that, they want something back from the kids, which the kids love, which is their opinions. What better way to decide how to make new cleats than to talk to our kids? But it gives our kids an opportunity to look at sports marketing, gives them an opportunity to do some public speaking, use social media. We also realize that almost everybody in our school, we have 70 boys in our school, 85% diversity, 90% need. Many kids who have never had the opportunity to even go to college if they wanted to. But if you don't go pro, what you end up doing is going to college, and that's not such a bad deal. But these kids really said, I'd like to go into the sports area. So we have internships in high-performance sports, physical therapy, OT, even entrepreneurship. We had a group of kids who did an entrepreneurship program as an internship, and they actually went to regionals, and they won first place. Who would have known soccer players or entrepreneurs? But given the opportunity and the limited time they have, a lot of it was personalizing. Richie Graham started the idea when he went to Brook Mountain Academy, and he had this idea that he wanted a school that would really create a community of soccer players to reach their fullest potential. And he says it really doesn't matter how far you go in the game, but it's who you become in the process of getting there. And I think about that all the time with our students, because they are student athletes and students first. And as young adolescents, they think they're invincible and their body will never break down. But I keep on reminding them, that body of yours that you think is so great, your brain runs that body. So invest in your brain. And they do. Thank you.